I've been late on every single video that I've uploaded for the last 3 weeks. I kept thinking it was a motivation problem. I just wasn't working hard enough. But it turns out that the system that I had originally designed to make these videos and get them out wasn't working right. Last week, I said that the next video that I made would be about building content systems to speed up your content creation process. I'm still going to make that video, but I want to take advantage of this chance to show you my own system breaking down and how I approach iterating on it and fixing it. So before we get into what went wrong with my system here, I want to start by explaining what it was and what it was designed for originally, right? Okay, so in the first place, before I came up with the system, I was making all of my shorts by hand, and each one took about an hour and a half to make. I wanted to upload 7 shorts each week, so like one short every day, plus I wanted to add like a 10 to 15 minute video once per week. So in order to add a video once per week, I kind of guessed like maybe a video will take like 5 hours to make. I don't really know. I haven't really tried. So for shorts, 7 shorts a week at an hour and a half each. That's 10.5 hours of making shorts each week, plus 5 hours for making one video for a total of 15.5 hours each week making content. So that's like manageable, but honestly, it was just like too much. I was like, there's got to be a faster way to do this. I wanted to see if I could come up with a way to do that more quickly. And another issue that was kind of coming to bear was that I was running out of ideas for shorts. The way that I was making shorts wasn't a sustainable way, so I needed a new way to provide shorts if I wanted to continue to upload them at once per day. That's how I came up with this content batch system. So I designated a day of the week, which would be my content batch day. That was going to be Mondays. So on Monday, I would make a video. This is like a medium length video. This is like a 10 to 15 minute video that I'm trying to make. So on Monday, I would make this video, which would include outlining, scripting, recording, and editing the video, which like I originally guessed I was guessing it was like 5 hours long. So it would be like 5 hours of work. I would do all of this on Monday. So the key here is that I would cut from the video the shorts. So I would kind of like plan ahead, and I would expect that I would make shorts from this video. That way, I don't have to come up with individual shorts and record them separately. They'll be literally, I will just cut sections from the video out as shorts. And so, what's really genius about this is that it basically it lets you reuse content. So you're spending the same amount of time, but you're getting like twice as much content. Or in this case, instead of getting one video, I'm getting one video and 7 shorts. So that's like 8 total things out of the same time that I'm spending. Not to mention that like if I'm right and this like video takes 5 hours to make, then I'm already saving 5.5 hours if all this did was make me 7 shorts. But it's supposed to make me 7 shorts and a video. This was like, oh wow, that's a lot of time saved. Okay, so this was the original concept behind content batching on Mondays, like Monday batch days. Okay, so that's what the system was actually trying to do. But here is actually how it went. Basically, for the last 3 weeks, I've been doing this process, and for every single week, instead of being done in the first 5 hour, like the 5 hour process on Monday, it ended up taking way longer than that, and it every single time has taken 3 days, Monday through Wednesday. Week one, basically, I expected that this would take longer because it was the first week, so I needed to test the idea in the first place. So I ended up spending time ideating, which I hadn't allowed for here in this original expectation. It took me actually all of the Monday time that I had planned to do ideating and an outline. On Tuesday, when I moved on to recording, I noticed that I was like scripting in my head every line as I went. So I was trying to do this from bullet points, just kind of like talk out the idea, but I ended up doing the work of scripting, but without having it on a page, which was obviously inefficient. So I wasted a bunch of time doing that. So I decided to just like abandon the idea of just doing it from bullet points. I moved on to like scripting the entire thing from scratch. I managed to, by scripting it, I worked in hooks so that I could just cut things into shorts after the fact. I got back to recording, but editing took longer than expected. And so it ended up being Wednesday when I finally finished the edit and uploaded the video and cut out the shorts. So the second week it went just a little bit different. So I did get things done at a higher pace. I still did the ideating, but I managed to get all the way through to the scripting portion. in the first day, but the script ended up being too long, so I decided that I would split it into multiple videos. In doing so, I basically had already reached the limit of my time on Monday. So on Tuesday, I finished the shorter script that only covered some of the original content I was planning. I recorded it, I edited it, but then after I did editing for 3 hours, I edited the main timeline when I thought I was editing a short, deleted 95% of the video, and I had to start all over when I basically loaded the save and started again. Basically, at the end of Tuesday, my soul was crushed. I just kind of allowed it to move on to the next day. So on Wednesday, I did the whole edit all over again and finished it. It was a little faster since I already knew what I was trying to do. And then I uploaded and cut it out a couple of shorts. I cut the rest of the shorts out over the course of the week. So I should have just batched these, but I guess it's understandable considering how destroyed my soul was. And then on the third week, I already had a video from the previous week. I decided I would start on Sunday to do the scripting, just because I had already noticed at this point that it was taking more than one day to get this done. But I didn't do the script all the way on Sunday. I only got to the outlining stage. And then on Monday, I reapproached it and I just like kept outlining it. And when I tried to move into the scripting phase, the content was not quite matching up with the original idea for the video. So I was having to do the outlines over again. And I did this restructuring process a few times. Eventually I got to the draft stage, but it just it didn't match up with my vision of what I wanted. It didn't have the voice that I wanted and didn't hit the points that I wanted. And so in the end, I had to like completely edit it over from scratch. Basically editing the first 2 sections took me an hour, and there's still 6 more sections after that, meaning it's going to take 3 more hours. I already could tell that the video was not going to be finished that day, which was the Monday that I'm supposed to be putting out these videos, right? At that point, I just kind of quit for the day and moved on to Tuesday. On Tuesday, at this point, it's been 3 weeks. I haven't got it done on the Monday as I was planning, and I'm just like, I'm starting to feel burnt out. So I figured it's about time to address the systematic problem here and get to the bottom of like what is the actual issue. Before we move on to like how we move forward from here, I want to talk about like the emotional part of this kind of journey here. I've been doing this thing for 3 weeks now, this plan that I originally came up with, and I had set myself these goals and expectations, and I had failed to meet them not once, twice, but 3 times in a row. So at this point, I'm starting to think like I'm the problem. Like if I could just work harder, if I wasn't, I've been having to take breaks in the middle of the process. And if I hadn't done that, then I would have been fine. I've been putting things off because it frustrates me to know that this isn't getting uploaded on time, or that it's going to take longer than I thought. And like each of these things is just like adding mental pressure to myself. And so actually the more pressure that I put on myself, the less I want to work on it, the longer it ends up taking. And on Tuesday of week 2, I finished the video, and just as I crest the hill and have made a little progress from the previous week by getting it done a day earlier than I had the last week, I fail by destroying the edit, and I lose a whole day to having to re-edit the video. So on the third week, I think it's no surprise that ended up how it did, where at the end of the first day when it wasn't on time, I basically shut down. I just didn't want to work on this video anymore. It had nothing to do with the video in particular. It's all about the process and the fact that I hadn't lived up to this process that I had built. But if you look at it in perspective, like clearly this wasn't what I had originally signed up for. I thought I had to do 5 hours of work on a Monday, but it turned out to be far more work than just 5 hours of work. But I'm still trying to hold myself like emotionally and mentally like accountable to that timeline. It's silly to be doing that. So I've backed myself into a corner. It's a bad spot to be in. Okay. So anyway, with that, let's get back into how I went about solving the problem. At this point, I think I've started to understand, okay, actually it's not my fault. It's the fault of the system that I've built and the assumptions that I made when I originally set it in place that I was wrong about. Okay, so let's look at our assumptions just to make them clear. I assumed that this process for making a video would take 5 hours on a Monday. But what actually happened was it took a lot longer than 5 hours. I assumed that I wouldn't need to take time to ideate, but it actually takes an hour or two for each video. I mean, I think this is obvious, but you could ideate maybe in blocks and get a bunch of video ideas ready that you can just kind of like grab one out of the pile and start working on it. Okay, so anyway, I also assumed that I wouldn't take any breaks. I would just do this 5-hour block of work and get it done all on the Monday. Well, it's hard to work on the same project nonstop. This doesn't mean that I personally can't work more than a few hours in the day. I think what I'm noticing is my inability to work on the same project constantly. Like I need to take a break. I can work on something else, or maybe I could just take a break and have lunch, or take a break and watch videos if I wanted to. Because you're sooner or later you're going to hit some kind of creative like obstacle. And so I guess I've realized that I can only hit so many of these on the same particular task in a day, and I need to like let it sit and come back to it the next day. And so this I think was one of the biggest missteps, mis expectations that I had. I also thought that I would just use bullet points and not use a script. That's a big error as well, because yeah, when I tried to implement the bullet point approach, it did not work at all, and I ended up having to script it. Well, scripting took about 2 to 3 hours each time. It might even have taken longer than this. This is like a guesstimate, okay? What actually happened, everything took way longer. It took something like 2 times longer, maybe more. I'm trying not to include these breaks that I'm taking though. What is the gap? The gap is it just takes longer than I thought that it would take. It's not necessarily something that I can do all in one day because they're not contiguous work hours as I've written it here. Great. So how do we fix this? Well, we need to iterate on our system that we've originally designed. It's not about like throwing out the system totally, because there's still like really good ideas here. We just need to iterate on it to make sure that it actually works. We need to fix the bugs. So here's the fix. I'm going to split the work across multiple days. I'm not going to try to do it all on Monday. So on Sunday, my plan is I'm going to do the ideation part, the outlining part, and then the scripting is all happening on Sunday. On Monday is just focus on recording. So get in the right energy, get in the zone. Tuesday, I'll do the editing and I'll cut out the shorts. Then on Wednesday, we're going to upload and schedule. So the reason why I put this on Wednesday and not on Tuesday when I supposedly finish it is that this gives us a little bit of wiggle room. So if something goes terribly, terribly wrong and I need to spend another few hours, then Wednesday will give us the room to do that. So that is the new plan. It's a lot more flexible, and it gives us a lot more time. So now let's talk about the meta lesson. The meta lesson is what I want you to take away from having seen this video. That when you are designing a system, you need to acknowledge that you've made some assumptions at the beginning of the process. And so when you go through the steps of actually implementing the system, you need to identify when those assumptions have been changed. When you encounter evidence that the assumption was wrong. Okay, so you need to identify that and deal with it more quickly than I did here. Because the major mistake that I made was allowing my assumptions to be overwritten, but not changing my plan to match. There's also not blaming yourself when you're trying to accomplish an impossible task. I was holding myself to expectations that clearly could not be met because the original assumptions were no longer valid. No system, as you design it the first time, is going to be perfect. Systems are perfected through iteration. So you need to continue to monitor what you're doing, make sure that all of your assumptions are still matching up nice, and maybe schedule a time to go back, review, and iterate. If you're dealing with something similar, a goal that you keep missing, a system that's not working, then I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Sometimes just talking through it helps you see the real problem. Subscribe and follow me on X if you want to see how it turns out. Thanks. I'll see you in the next one.